I am an avid self-help reader. I know that there is a lot of cheese, a lot of stigma, a lot of common sense, and a lot of white privilege embedded into this type of book and material. But the book I'm going to share with you today and discuss with you today is a book that has been recommended to me by every single therapist I have ever seen. And it is a book that has truly helped me become more self-aware. It has helped me mature. It has helped me identify destructive behaviors and habits that I had. And I hope that this book can help you too. Hello, sweet pea. Welcome back to my channel, and hi, mom. My mom watches every single one of my videos, so hi, mom, especially for you. I'm Anna, the Joyful Reader, and I'm so thankful that you're here today. Welcome to Self-Care Sundays, where we take a break from our escapist reading habits, if you're like me. This is where we take a moment, a beat, to take time for ourselves and apply the things that we can learn from books into our everyday lives. Today we're going to discuss this little gem here. This is The 4 Agreements by Miguel Ruiz. This is a very classic book. It was written in 1997. There's been over 8 million copies sold. I think 46 languages it's been translated into. The Toltec lifestyle, or the Toltec spirituality practice, is the author's familial tradition. Familial spirituality traditions, they, I believe, are considered shaman. Don't let that fool you or stop you from picking up this book if you haven't already, because the lessons that you can learn from this book apply to pretty much everyone. You can be of any religion, of any creed, of any spirituality practice, and still learn something and take away something from this book, because that is how timeless and how universal this wisdom truly is. Toltec, the word in meaning, means artist of life. And so, stop holding this. And so Toltec wisdoms are all about learning how to create a life that is full of love, of enjoyment, and personal fulfillment. Specifically in this book, we're going to talk about the 4 agreements, which are to be impeccable with your word, to not take things personally, to not make assumptions, and to always do your best. And the application of these little golden nuggets is not as easy as it seems. It's quite difficult in my experience. I want to talk about just a general basis of what, in this context, an agreement is. An agreement can be a belief, a standard, a law, knowledge that you have deemed for yourself as true and factual. And as we live our life experience, we learn how to agree or make agreements with the people around us, primarily from our parents and authority figures and friends. And anyone that influences us helps us to create agreements in our lives. And we collect these agreements and we put them into something called a book of law, or a belief system. Examples of agreements can be as simple as our spoken and written language. Somewhere along the line, someone decided that these words I'm saying to you strung together have a meaning, like the word apple, combining the sounds of a and p and u. Apple creates an apple, and you associate these sounds with an apple. Similarly, we have our written language, where symbols represent sounds, which represent an object. So this APPLE represents apple, and we have an understanding of what those symbols sound like, and that those sounds equal this object. Even in the science community, things that are found through experiment and research have to be validated. Either experiments must be replicated to authenticate validity, or there has to be a general consensus that the research done is substantial enough to have a scientific consensus, an agreement, if you will. Our lives are full of contracts that we sign, that we agree to. We have terms of agreement for usage. So we agree to a lot of things in our lives, but not everything that we agree to is written or spoken. For example, when you're in a relationship, you make the agreement that you will not hanky-panky around with other people. We agree to show up to work to receive payment. We agree that cutting a line is an atrocious offense to humanity, and that talking very loudly on public transit is a complete nuisance. So don't do it. So as we continue to live our lives, we collect these agreements that become our belief system. The belief system is a book of law that rules our minds. Without question, whatever is in that book of law is our truth. We base all of our judgments according to it. As humans, it is natural for us to seek comfort and safety in a herd, a group, or a tribe. It's part of our ancestral heritage to seek comfort and to avoid exile, because if we were exiled out into the wilderness, our chances for survival would be minimum. So we tend to naturally desire to conform. Also, this conformity desire helps us bring organization to the human existence. If we didn't have this idea of conformity, then there would be mass chaos everywhere. However, when we aim to acquire the acceptance of other people before we have or experience self-acceptance, that's when we get into unhealthy boundaries, low self-esteem territory, because having a core value to yourself that is unwaverable is the anchor to your soul ship, you know? Without that anchor, you are just tossed about in the winds of public opinion. The most important agreements are the ones you made with yourself. In these agreements, you tell yourself who you are, what you feel, what you believe, and how to behave. So something to keep in mind is that the book of law you've created with all of these agreements is the one that you use to judge yourself and others. The holistic psychologist Nicole Perla says this. She says, we can only give others what we have practiced giving ourselves. So outside of your interactions with other people, I really want to focus this lesson on your inner being, on yourself. So once you can learn to manage you, your energy, your time, your money, your boundaries, creating and establishing those healthy boundaries is so important. Once you can do that, I've found that the joy that you feel in life just exponentially grows. So, disclaimer, I'm not perfect at these things. These are habits. These are things that I work on a regular basis because dang, I'm human, and it's a challenge. But I know that in the pursuit and in the practice of these things, my life has gotten a lot better. Number one, be impeccable with your word. Being impeccable with your word is the correct use of your energy. It means to use your energy in the direction of truth and love. I could honestly dedicate an entire video to just this one agreement because it is so all-encompassing. Being impeccable with your word means to avoid things like gossip, slander, drama, jealousy, dishonesty, hate. So it encompasses avoiding those things. But for the focus of today, and to keep this video as concise as possible, we're going to focus on self-talk and how you speak to yourself and about yourself. Likely you and I are very similar. We have both had someone we love, respect, someone in authority, someone who we valued their opinion, harshly or unfairly criticize us, and it forever shaped your opinion of yourself. For me personally, I definitely got a lot of "you're fat, you're unattractive, you're stupid, you're lazy, you're self-righteous." You know, if you were to combine all of the times that these things were said to me from people of authority, people I cared for, people I respected their opinion, or I wanted them to love me, to like me, all of the times, you can understand how that would shape my mentality, because if people I respect think this of me, then it must be true. And that type of correlation and association is not true. These things have fueled imposter syndrome. These things have fueled depression and social anxieties in me because I believed these things when they were told to me. But now, as an adult, it's my responsibility to fix it. It's time to rip out the pages from your book of law, get rid of those, we don't need them, and to insert some new beliefs about yourself that are true, that serve you, because those other beliefs, they don't serve you. And thanks to therapy, I've learned that these criticisms that were lashed out at me had nothing to do with me. That if this person is this harsh with me, then secretly they must be 100 times more critical of themselves. Even if they don't show it in public, in private, they must be having their own inner turmoil within themselves. So what can you do? You've got all of this reparenting to do. What can you do about it? And what I've done is I've employed CBT, or cognitive behavioral therapy techniques, into my everyday life, and I've, with the help of a licensed mental health professional. And I wanted to read to you a little bit from the American Psychology Association. CBT treatment usually involves efforts to change thinking patterns. These strategies might include learning to recognize one's distortions in thinking that are creating problems and then to reevaluate them in the light of reality, getting a better understanding of the behavior and motivation of others, using problem-solving skills to cope with difficult situations, learning to develop a greater sense of confidence in one's own abilities. And I've used this a lot. One of the techniques that I use is I have a self-awareness exercise that I use, and I ask myself certain questions when I'm criticized. I ask myself, who is it coming from? Does their opinion hold value? Is it true? And does it matter? So if someone is criticizing me, they're like, hey, you've got brown eyes, it's gross. I'm like, well, okay, sorry. Go look at someone else, I guess. You know, but if someone is like, hey, Anna, you know, what you said was really insensitive and it hurt my feelings, then I can be like, oh my gosh, like, let's talk this out. Help me understand what I did wrong so that I can treat you with respect. I also have a mindfulness practice, the spirituality practice that helps me. This includes things like meditation, mindfulness, practicing being present in the moment. This includes journaling exercises, what else? Affirmations, visualizations, things like this, or intention making. These things just help me focus in on what's important and help me get rid of fluff and help me identify, you know, reactions in my body, help me to identify, you know, thinking patterns that are not serving me. Number 2 is don't take anything personally. Personal importance, or taking things personally, is the maximum expression of selfishness because we make the assumption that everything is about me. Nothing other people do is because of you. That nothing other people do is a reflection of you. It's always a reflection of them. And sure, there are instances, like I mentioned before, where you might be insensitive to someone else or anything like that, and they tell you that, hey, you're being insensitive. And so you manage those things with respect and love. But in general, when someone is abhorrently insensitive, rude, insulting, and just otherwise just not pleasant to be around, then it really speaks a lot about them and nothing about you. People who have a level of awareness and they are working on themselves don't tend to want to attack other people needlessly. Those things are always a reflection of how other people are feeling, their emotions, their processing of their world environment. The opposite is true too. So if someone is benevolent and they're peaceful and loving and compassionate and empathetic, it's nothing about you, it's their compassionate, they're loving, they're peaceful, and that's how they are. I used to think that not taking things personally was limited to just not getting offended by what people do and say, but in reading this book, it enlightened me to remember that it's also about not taking things personally when you're complimented or praised. Miguel Ruiz says this: what people do, think, feel, or say, don't take it personally. If they tell you how wonderful you are, they're not saying that because of you. You know you are wonderful. It is not necessary to believe other people who tell you that you are wonderful. This is where confidence comes from self-esteem comes from, is that you know that you are of value innately. You know that you are lovable. You know that you are worth respect. You know these things, and so you don't need this outside validation to come in and kind of buoy you up. You know your inherent worth, and so you don't have to feel the self-importance that comes from lots of praise and appreciation. This, when I've been able to exercise this and practice this, it gives me a sense of what Kevin Hart likes to call unmessable witness. You know, you can be like an unbothered queen when things arise in your life, because there's the cliche of you could be the sweetest peach in the whole world, but there's somebody out there that doesn't like peaches, and that's on them. They're the ones that don't like peaches. You're just a juicy little peach. Like, you can't do anything about that. You can't make them like peaches, and you can't change yourself to an apple, because you are who you are. And so it comes down to being at peace with who you are and who you're hoping to be, and your goals, your dreams, being okay with where and what those things are, and not being so afraid of the opinions of others. Number 3, don't make assumptions. We have a tendency to make assumptions about everything. The problem with making assumptions is that we believe they are the truth. We could swear they are real. We make assumptions about what others are doing or thinking. We take it personally. We blame them and react by sending emotional poison with our words. That is why whenever we make assumptions, we are asking for problems. Every year that I read this book, this agreement punches me in the gut. This is where I really struggle. So in my line of work, I have to kind of make assumptions based off of historical data, based on current data, and in managing assets, sure, totally helpful. But in trying to manage human relationships, not helpful. Because basically an assumption is an educated guess. The problem with this is that when we're making these educated guesses or assumptions, we don't need to be making them. What we should be doing is talking to the person that we might feel unsettled in our relationship with them, instead of making an assumption based off of small points of data where we only have pieces of a puzzle and not seeing the whole picture. And even in assuming the good, usually if you are in a situation where you have to be like, well, let's just assume the good, there is a lining of mistrust and dishonesty behind that, because you are not trusting the person that you're assuming about. This agreement is asking us to have open, honest conversations with each other. I have been part of a few Facebook groups online, and it is astounding to me that people go on these Facebook groups full of strangers and they just say, hey, I think my boyfriend's cheating on me, what do I do? Or, hey, I think my partner is not interested in me anymore, how can I make them more interested in me? Or, hey, you know, I think my kid is taking drugs. You know, I found some mysterious things in his backpack, and I don't know what to do. And honestly, the best advice in any of those types of situations is talk to the person. Ask them the question. And it's a wonder, why do we have a hard time having these conversations, these difficult conversations? What are we so afraid of that we don't want to hear the truth? And I find for me, often I avoid these conversations because the truth will change how things are. That's my fear. Or the truth will challenge who I am as a person. So for example, if your boyfriend is cheating on you, you might think, oh, that means I'm unattractive. If your partner isn't showing interest in you, you might think that I'm not an interesting person, I'm really boring. If your child is doing drugs or doing things that they're not supposed to, you might think I am a terrible parent. And so you can see in this, we are taking the actions of others personally and then using words to abuse ourselves. So instead, we can take a moment and we can say, okay, I'm worried because of these few things that I can see and maybe a gut instinct that my boyfriend is being unfaithful to me. And you can say to yourself, okay, I respect and I love myself enough to have this conversation with my boyfriend. And I know that even if things change between us, even if we separate from each other, I will be okay. My worth is not dictated by this relationship. Also, if your partner is not showing interest in you, you can say, I love and respect myself enough to know that I am worth a relationship where my partner has mutual interest and love for me. If your child is doing drugs, breaking rules, you'll know that I will do my best to support my child and to try to educate, comfort, give stability to my child at this time. The comfort here is knowing that in doing your best to have this conversation, you're doing your best. And what else could you do but your best? And it has to be enough, because that's all you can do. Lastly, the fourth agreement is to always do your best. Always do your best, no more, no less. And I love this little aside next to always do your best, because I have lived my life where I was so busy being a yes person to everyone around me that I couldn't be my best. Whether it was at work or at home for my personal life, I would come home from work exhausted, overexpended, overused. And so then my home and my life would fall apart because I would, not have the energy to do chores. I was too lazy to work out because I felt so tired. And so I wasn't living my best life or even doing my best, because doing your best is maintaining and establishing boundaries so that you can have the energy to do the things that are essential and beneficial, that serve you to the fullest. Why do we do this? Why do we say yes to everything? And it comes from this need for validation. We want to be a good person. We want to be a nice person. We want to be reliable. We want to do all of these things. We don't need to prove anything. Just to take a risk and enjoy life is all that matters. Say no when you want to say no. Say yes when you want to say yes. And how you do this is by maintaining those healthy boundaries. When you have a healthy boundary and you honor them, you'll find that you'll have extra time, extra energy, extra money. You'll have more to say yes to things, to give to other people, because you've established yourself first. Your bucket is full, overflowing, and you can take that excess and share it with other people. The other thing I really liked in here is Miguel Ruiz says that your best isn't always the same. Life is always changing. Your circumstances, your mood, your mental health, everything is always changing and moving. And so sometimes your best will be really high quality, and sometimes the next day it's not so good. But when you know in your heart that you are doing everything in your power, within what energy you have to do your best, then you know with confidence that it's okay. You don't have to judge yourself harshly. You can forgive yourself for not being, as good as you were yesterday, but you know that you will try your best tomorrow, and you can start doing the things that will help you improve in your life. You can only be you when you do your best. When you don't do your best, you are denying yourself the right to be you. That is it for today. This is kind of a longer video. I hope that I can condense it well. Thank you so much for being here with me today on Self-Care Sunday. If you want more videos from me, please subscribe. If you enjoyed this video, hit the thumbs up, and I'll see you all next time.